Imagine this. Your bags are packed. Your friends are on their way. The perfect weekend getaway, the one you've been looking forward to for weeks, is finally here. It's your escape from the weekly grind. You head down to your secure private parking spot in your apartment building, only to find your car completely barricaded in, trapped by a stranger's car. For the fifth time, and as you stand there, staring at the vehicle that has made you a prisoner in your own home, you see your final angry warning note still tucked under their windshield wiper, limp and ignored. It was at that exact moment I realized that being polite was over. Being reasonable was. The system had failed me. It was time for a different kind of solution, one that they would never ever see coming. If you have ever felt that white-hot frustration of being utterly disrespected, if you know what it's like to be pushed to your absolute limit, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you're about to witness a story where justice isn't just served, it's meticulously engineered. Like this video, and let's dive into how a little bit of cleverness, a set of specialized tools, and a group of loyal friends delivered the most satisfying revenge I've ever experienced. To really understand the sheer arrogance of this phantom Parker, you need to understand my building. I live in a modern apartment complex right near the city. It's convenient, but parking is gold dust. Each apartment gets a designated double-length parking space, one car behind the other. It's a tight system, but it works. Access to the 5 levels of underground parking is controlled by an automatic roller door. You can only get in with a specific remote fob. There's no guest parking. There are no visitor passes. This isn't a public lot, it's a secure private garage for residents. I only have one car, so I've always tried to be a good neighbor. I park in the rear half of my double space. It leaves the front half open, making it a breeze for my neighbors with 2 cars to maneuver. Plus, it meant that on the rare occasion a friend needed a place to park for an evening, I could offer them my front spot if they gave me a heads up. It was a simple system built on courtesy and common sense, and for a long time, it worked perfectly. Then, about 6 months ago, it appeared, a small, unremarkable hatchback. It was a Friday afternoon. I had no plans, so I didn't think much of it. I figured it was a new resident who was confused, or maybe a guest of a neighbor who had snuck in behind them. I left a polite, handwritten note on the windshield. Something like, "Hey, just a friendly heads up, this is a private, assigned parking space. Please don't park here again. Thanks." I thought that would be the end of it. How wrong I was. The next Friday, it was back. Same car, same spot, blocking me in. My politeness evaporated and was replaced by a sharp sting of annoyance. This wasn't a mistake anymore. This was a choice. The person driving this car knew they were in a secure garage. They knew this wasn't an open spot, and they did it anyway. They were counting on the fact that I wouldn't make a scene. So, my note got a little firmer. "This is the second time. This is a private bay. You are blocking my vehicle. Do not park here again." For the next 5 weeks, it became a disgusting ritual. If I wanted to use my car on a weekend, I had to preemptively park at the very front of my bay, effectively blocking my own rear space. But on the weeks I wanted to leave it free for a friend, or just didn't think about it, the phantom hatchback would inevitably materialize on Friday afternoon, like a fungus you can't get rid of. My frustration was building into a cold, hard anger. It was the sheer entitlement of it. The assumption that their convenience was more important than my freedom to use my own property. I felt disrespected and powerless. My notes escalated. I stopped handwriting them. I started typing them up, printing them out in bold, capital letters. The final warning was a masterpiece of passive aggression. I took a clear, high-resolution photo of their car, making sure the license plate was perfectly visible. I printed it out on a full sheet of A4 paper. Below the photo, I wrote in a giant 72-point font, "This is a private parking space. You are parked illegally and blocking my vehicle. If this car is here again, I will have it towed and or press charges for trespassing. This is your final warning." I sealed it in a plastic sleeve to protect it from the elements and tucked it firmly under their wiper blade. I thought, There is no way anyone can ignore this. It's a clear, direct, and legally tinged threat. Surely, that would be enough. It wasn't. The following weekend was the one. The big one. A long weekend trip with my best mates. We were heading out of the city, a couple of hours drive for 3 days of hiking and bonfires. No work, no stress, just freedom. My car was essential. We needed 2 vehicles to fit everyone, and all our gear. I'd intentionally left my front spot clear all week, looking forward to a quick and easy getaway on Saturday afternoon. My friends arrived at my apartment, and we loaded their car up. The mood was electric. We were all buzzing with excitement. I grabbed my duffel bag, locked my apartment door, and said, "All right, let's go load up my car and hit the road." We took the elevator down to P3. The doors slid open. We walked towards my bay, laughing and joking. And then I saw it. The laughter died in my throat. My stomach dropped. There it was. The little hatchback, sitting smugly in my spot, pinning my car against the back wall. But it was the note that sent me over the edge. My final, laminated, threatening warning was still there. It had been there for over 24 hours. The plastic sleeve was slightly askew, and the paper inside was sitting there, limp and utterly ignored. The driver hadn't even bothered to remove it. They had seen my absolute final warning, a photo of their own car with a threat of legal action, and had thought, nah, not my problem. The audacity was breathtaking. I could feel the blood pounding in my temples. My friends fell silent, looking from the car to my face. They saw the shift. The fun-loving guy ready for a weekend away was gone, and in his place was someone radiating pure, undiluted rage. My guess was simple. Someone, probably a guest of another resident, had gone out Friday night, had too much to drink, and decided to just ditch their car in the first convenient spot they saw, planning to pick it up later. They didn't care that later would ruin someone else's entire weekend. "I'm gonna have this thing towed to an impound lot on the other side of the planet," I seethed, pulling out my phone. My friends were supportive. They understood, but we all knew what this meant. Our trip was in jeopardy. One car wouldn't be enough. The carefully laid plans were crumbling because of one person's selfish indifference. I called building management first. I got an after-hours answering service. They took a message. Utterly useless. Fine, I'd do it myself. I called the first 24/7 towing company I could find. I explained the situation calmly and clearly. Yes, it's a private residential garage. Yes, the car is blocking me in. I am the owner of the space. The dispatcher on the other end was sympathetic. Right up until I said the words, "It's on parking level 3. There was a pause. "Oh," he said, his voice flat. "Yeah, we can't help you." "What do you mean, you can't help me?" "Sir, our trucks have a minimum height clearance. We can't get a standard tow truck, let alone a flatbed, down 3 levels of a residential parking garage. The ceiling is too low, the corners are too tight. There's nothing we can do." I hung up the phone. My heart sank. That was it. The official channel, the proper way of doing things, was a dead end. I was, for all intents and purposes, completely and utterly screwed. I pictured myself sitting on the hood of this idiot's car, waiting for God knows how long for them to shamefully shuffle back and pick it up, while my friends had to rework their entire trip without me. The feeling of powerlessness was suffocating. And then, as I stood there, defeated, a thought began to form. A tiny little spark in the back of my mind. It had to do with my parents' house, a 30-minute drive away. You see, my parents have a big garage, and in that garage sits my other car, a project car I've been slowly restoring. It's my pride and joy, and because garage space is always at a premium, I use a very specific set of tools to maximize the room I have. I turned to my friends. The defeated look on my face was gone. It was replaced by a slow, spreading grin. "Guys," I said, "the trip isn't canceled. It's just delayed by about an hour. And I promise you, it's going to be worth it." They looked at me, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Are you going to hotwire it?" One of them joked. "Something better," I replied. "Something much, much better. Who wants to help me screw this person over in the most epic way possible?" A chorus of enthusiastic yeses echoed in the concrete garage. The mood had shifted from disappointment to intrigued excitement. We piled into my friend's car and headed to my parents' place. When we got there, I led them into the garage, and there, sitting under the wheels of my partially restored classic, were the instruments of our coming revenge: a set of 4 vehicle positioning jacks. For those who don't know, these things are brilliant pieces of engineering. They look like heavy-duty metal frames. You slide one around a car's tire, and then you use a foot-pumped hydraulic lever to squeeze 2 rollers together, which lifts that entire corner of the car a couple of inches off the ground. With one of these under each of the 4 wheels, a 3,000-pound car suddenly becomes as maneuverable as a shopping cart. You can push it forwards, backwards, sideways, diagonally, any direction you want, with minimal effort. They are designed for moving cars into impossibly tight spaces. And as I looked at them, a beautiful, malicious, and perfectly proportional plan bloomed in my mind. We weren't just going to move the car, we were going to make it disappear. My friends immediately grasped the genius of the plan. None of them minded spending an extra hour to deliver some righteous justice. We loaded the 4 heavy jacks into the trunk and drove back to my apartment building. A team on a mission. We snuck back down to P3. The garage was quiet, almost eerily so. The only sounds were our footsteps and the low hum of the ventilation system. The offending hatchback was still sitting there, a monument to one person's entitlement. We got to work. It was like a well-oiled pit crew. 2 of my friends acted as lookouts while the rest of us quickly and quietly positioned a jack around each of the car's 4 tires. Sh-clank. The first jack slid into place. Pump, pump, the hydraulics engaged, lifting the front left tire off the ground. Sh-clank. The second. Pump, pump. Within 5 minutes, all 4 wheels were suspended on casters. The entire car was floating. I gave it a gentle push on the fender. It glided sideways with almost no effort. My friends let out a few quiet, amazed laughs. The feeling of power was intoxicating. We had gone from helpless victims to the gods of this concrete underworld. "All right," I whispered, pointing, "let's take it for a walk." Slowly, carefully, 6 of us began to push the small hatchback across the parking level. We moved it away from the main parking bays, towards a forgotten corner of the garage. My target was a small, unlit, unused section of floor space behind a massive, load-bearing concrete pillar. It was a structural dead zone, not a parking spot, not even a walkway. It was just there. A guy on my level sometimes parked his motorcycle in the general vicinity. But even he wasn't supposed to, and I knew he wouldn't mind. The space was perfect. It was bordered on one side by the thick concrete pillar, and on the other by the solid outer wall of the garage. We angled the car and pushed it nose first into the gap. We got it perfectly centered. Then, we released the hydraulic pressure on the jacks, one by one. Thump, thump, thump. The car settled back onto the ground, its tires now firmly on the concrete. We slid the jacks out. I stepped back to admire our work. It was magnificent. The car was now wedged between the pillar and the wall. There was maybe, a foot of clearance on either side. The nose of the car was pointed directly at the back wall, with only a foot of space in front of it. It was physically impossible to open the driver or passenger doors more than a few inches. It was impossible to turn the wheel enough to maneuver. It was, in a word, trapped, not blocked. Trapped. For the final touch, I walked over to the spot where the car used to be, reached into my own car, and retrieved the angry laminated note. I wasn't leaving them any clues. I took back my jacks, took back my note, and we left. We piled into our 2 cars, and finally, set off for our weekend trip, laughing the entire way. It was the sweetest start to a vacation I've ever had. We had an amazing long weekend. The story of our little relocation project became the running joke of the trip, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't wait to get back. I had to see the aftermath. I got home late on Monday afternoon. I dropped my bags in my apartment and went straight down to the garage. My heart was pounding with anticipation. I rounded the corner, and my eyes went first to my parking spot. It was beautifully, gloriously empty. Then, I casually strolled over to the dark corner behind the pillar. And there it was, the hatchback. Still there. A wave of pure, unadulterated satisfaction washed over me. But then I noticed something that made me break into a huge grin. The front wheels were turned at a sharp angle, different from how we'd left them. And on the dusty concrete floor, next to the front tires, were fresh black scuff marks. They had been here. They had found their car, and they had tried to get it out. I could picture the scene perfectly. The owner returning, confused, to find their car missing. The frantic search through the parking garage. The eventual discovery in that dark, forgotten corner. The dawning horror as they realized their situation. The desperate, useless attempt to turn the wheel, inching the car forward a few centimeters. Then backward, the tires squealing in protest against the tight confines. Achieving absolutely nothing. They were stuck, wholly and completely stuck. By the simple laws of physics, the car sat there for several more days. A silent testament to their own arrogance. It finally disappeared later that week. To this day, I have no idea how they got it out. Maybe they had to call a specialized towing company with go-jacks of their own, which must have cost them an absolute fortune. Maybe they had to get a bunch of friends to try and lift it. I don't know, and I don't care. All I know is this. I never, ever saw that little hatchback in our garage again. My parking spot has remained mine, and mine alone, ever since. Sometimes playing by the rules gets you nowhere. You can leave polite notes, you can make official complaints, but some people will only learn a lesson when it's delivered in a way they can't ignore. They wanted to make my space their convenience. I simply made their car an immovable object. It was, in my opinion, a perfectly proportional response. And that's the story of how a little bit of teamwork and some clever hydraulics served up a cold dish of parking revenge. What do you think? Was the revenge justified? What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed for a parking violation? Drop your stories and your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this tale of righteous victory, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another story of justice being served. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.